So Dylan's gone, which means we now bring in for a three-way dance to end the show, Bart and Jared. Lord save us all.
Good morning, everyone. There is no God here. Both of us are here. You abandoned all hope on it.
Well, of course. That's how we're supposed to end these shows. Jared, I don't know how much of this show that you got to listen to in hour number one, but I wanted to get your comments and your depth of understanding about the booing that happened yesterday with Scotland and England, and Ally McCoy believing that booing God Save the King was totally out of order.
I don't care what Ally McCoy thinks. I have many people whose opinions I care about. Ally McCoy's just way down on that list. You have a group of people north of Hadrian's Wall, again, that don't like being told what to do. They're incredibly stubborn people. I adore them. And you played the anthem of the people who they consider to be their chief rival in life. And they booed it. Yes, that's going to happen. Also, Scotland playing, Flower of Scotland is the perfect anthem for them, especially because it is about a war, as any good anthem should be. It's about the Battle of Bannockburn. I don't care that they booed. England won the day. I don't know. It's this thing where I guess England has to be outraged.
Yes,
they got to be upset about something. They have to be aggrieved about something.
They have to get their wigs disheveled about something.
Like something has to be wrong. And this is not just England thing, even though we're picking on England. This is a sports thing where something always has to be wrong. It can't ever just be okay.
Ooh, like Kirby Smart somehow getting mad that a South Carolina player didn't mention UGA in toughest environments to play in.
Yes. Absolutely. But yeah, everyone's gonna get upset. And I don't know. I thought Steve Clark said it best, where he's like, "Yeah, we wanted to win, but we're 15. This window was great, man. We're 15. If we just keep doing our job." And Norway survived a late scare from Georgia. Mm-hmm. If Georgia had drawn Norway, Scotland would have qualified for the Euros yesterday. He was like, "Man, this is great, man. We're 15-15. Of course we wanted to win that game. We didn't though. That's okay. We still had some young guys get experience, and we were able to take another step towards qualifying and pretending like the past is going to be your future. Because good on you, Scotland, because you're actually getting to the point now where you're making waves in terms of international games. The problem is now you're getting the articles out of the Scotsman about how there's no players in Scotland playing for the Scottish national team, which is. But you know how many players on Norway's national team play in Norway?
None.
None. The answer is 0. By the way, a bunch of the Scottish players came up through Scottish academies and then moved down. Like John McGinn moved down to England because they got the money. Yes. It's fine. I know we do the same thing here to an extent, and it's a different conversation in the United States about the idea of, how do we feel about MLS players making the national team, that sort of thing. It's a different animal because you have a higher quantity and quality of American player who's playing overseas. So it's a different animal, but yes, again, Scotland was not innocent in this. We always have to have something to complain about. My God, stop complaining. I'm absolutely begging you, just stop complaining about something for 5 minutes. Anyway.
Okay, so Bart, what is that to your left? Is that a foldable curtain?
Yeah, I'm in a meeting room of the center in which I am currently working this food show. Piggly Wiggly says hi.
Oh, see, Piggly Wiggly.
Pig on the pig. So, John, do you have any guesses where I might be right now?
Birmingham, Alabama.
I'm not technically in Birmingham. I'm a little south.
Pelham?
No.
So what's a little south of Homewood?
Well, I guess it's southeast, maybe east.
Southeast of No, it's not Alex City.
It's in the Birmingham. It's on 459. It's not like I'm that far out.
Mountain Brook. See, I don't know my Birmingham suburbs. I just spend my time.
You're fine.
It's not like Hoover, is it?
I'm in Hoover.
Wow.
I'm at the Hoover Met.
You're at Hoover Met?
Yeah, I'm at the Finley Center, which is right next to the Hoover Met.
Wow.
Tell John's favorite coach you said hi.
Yeah. A stone's throw away from the greatest high school reality drama ever.
Because it's all about the kids.
The kids.
Bam's question before we get into USMNT, WNT, and reffing down here this week. Bam had his Wall Pass Wednesday question asked thusly: your top 3 national anthems.
Okay, so spoiler alert: none of them are the U.S. Star Spangled Banner. It's a terrible national anthem. I'm sorry, this is my hottest take. Maybe it's a terrible song and a not great national anthem. Yes, it's about a war. It's not about a war that we were particularly excelling in. So anyway, I think my top 3 are the Marseillaise.
That is number 1, correct?
For me, it's number 1. I don't know the actual Welsh pronunciation, but Land of Our Fathers, Wales.
Okay.
And then I got to be honest, I got turned on to the Colombian national anthem down there in Australia, hearing the Colombians sing it. But definitely not the U.S. A sneaky good one that I always enjoy is "O Canada," because you can belt it out. I know it's slow, and some people don't think it's very hype, and I get that, but you can still yell it without it still sounds like a song. Yeah. But La Marseillaise is top, and then for me it's Land of Our Fathers from Scotland.
Okay.
Whatever. Come-made.
There you go.
However you pronounce it.
Jarrett.
Oh, it's France. I will endorse Colombia. It's an underrated one.
Listen, a lot of those Latin American countries have bangers
great
as national
anthems.
anthems.
They have a lot of trauma that has led to some amazing anthems. And then Flower of Scotland. Mostly because you get what you got yesterday, which is you have the singular bagpipe firing off verses 1 and 3. The bagpipe plays through verse 1, and then you just let the stadium carry verse 3, and it's always well done.
Yeah.
God save the King is just.
The other hot take would be Jerusalem's better than God Save the King, but
see, that's the thing, man. It's you start getting into that. Yeah, you start getting into what if we did different songs? Because it's always been the argument why do you do Flower of Scotland instead of Scotland the Brave? Well, I don't know. Flower of Scotland was written in 1972.
Yeah.
So, but
I don't know.
But it works. Why do we play? Hey, you want to take it a step further? Why do we play the U.S. national anthem before domestic sporting events? Every single one.
Because the troops, Jarrett. Because the troops. If you don't play it, the troops won't know that you like them. Sorry, this is going to get political.
I'm just reminded of Bo Burnham's character in Parks and Rec.
Oh, boy.
Anywho.
Yes. So today.
Speaking of complaining, let's talk about the U.S. men's national team.
Exactly.
Hey, you know what? You know what? It could be worse. You could have had a 3-3 draw against Uzbekistan's B team.
Yeah.
And you were down 1-0, and you were down 2-1, and you were up 3-2, but at 90+2 gave up a set piece. Oh my God.
My favorite take has been a lot of the Mexico fans on Twitter especially have been like, oh no, it wasn't our strongest squad either. And I'm like,
it was the Uzbek B.
Yeah, I was like, you still
noted superpower Uzbekistan.
Yes.
Their rotated squad.
Yes. From the match that they lost to the U.S. men's national team. Tofka's fired up about 3GB. And I'll go ahead and put this on the table before we get into analysis of matches and things. Tofka says that it needs to be discussed the reasonably inferred comments by 3GB. He was practically guaranteed a second cycle contract, and the search was a sham. I don't know where those comments came from.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think the general understanding from U.S. soccer people who actually know things, not people who make things up on Twitter, is Greg was probably going to be rehired.
Yeah.
From or maybe not rehired, extended.
Yeah.
Past the 2022 World Cup, which, as I said on the show last week, I was against because of just the generic. I don't like a 2-cycle coach, and I do think that we should have tried to do something better than Greg Berhalter. However, I think had they kept him on after the World Cup last year, I think there would have been a lot of teeth gnashing, but I don't think it would have been to where it is now. I think the real disappointment is that you went through a search and ended up with the same guy. Now, you ended up with the same guy because you used a lot of the metrics from the guy who was applying. So if I apply for a job and they use all the metrics of the performance that I just had, of course, you're probably going to get preferential. You're going to be preferred in that job search. But I think everyone was kind of under the understanding that Greg was most likely going to just be kept on for this cycle. Now, obviously, some things happened. The Reynas decided to soccer parent to infinity, and we had to go through the search process. I am, again, disappointed that we landed on Berhalter again. I do think we could do better, but there's also a lot of stipulations, qualifications, and boundaries on what type of coach that U.S. Soccer will and can hire.
Right.
And people need to understand that. People need to we're not paying $5 million for a coach. It's not happening. Stop pretending like we're just going to go get Jose Mourinho. Stop it. The part of the problem is we put ourselves in these positions because we think these things. Someone on Twitter says this, or someone at the bar says, why don't we just go get Zinedine Zidane? And it's like, well, that would be great. Where are you going to get $10 million a year to pay this man?
And he ain't coming here anyway.
I still think that Patrick Vieira was in my opinion, or Thierry Henry type of player or coach where they would have done it. You would have had to pay them a little bit more money. But we all know that there's a discrepancy between club coaching salaries and national team coaching salaries for the fact that you're not doing as much work, especially not, you're not working 24/7 the way that a club manager would.
Correct.
So, you probably could have given them 2.5 and they would have come. And I think U.S. Soccer should have tried to stretch their budget a little bit more. For example, Vieira was making about 4.4, I think, when he was sacked at Crystal Palace. Roy Hodgson apparently is making 4.4 pennies, I think. So that's probably why they kept him. But, Vieira, 4.4 million at Palace is not a whole lot when you consider what the other Premier League managers are making.
No.
But that's a lot of money for a national team manager. At the end of his cycle, Greg, last year, in the World Cup year, where all the bonuses are available, 1.8. So that's a big gap. I'm not good at math, but 4.4 is a heck of a lot higher than 1.8 million.
Yes, that is true.
I don't know. I think we put ourselves in this position to think that we were going to go hire Jose Mourinho or, anyone like that. And the reality is that just wasn't likely. But there were still some coaches that I think were in our sphere that we could have stretched a little bit and got.
So when you look at these two matches with the reintegration of 3GB and the guys that were there, yes, it was Uzbekistan and Oman. What are some of your larger 30,000-foot takeaways from this window?
So I think first off, and this is, no one wants to hear this, so I'm sorry. It was very clear to me that no one on the field was except for Weston McKennie, because he doesn't have a dial. He either is at a 10 or 11. There's no dial for Wes. I think a lot of guys were operating around a 7 in terms of just effort, because I get it. They just started a lot of, especially this roster, it's all but 2 MLS players, or European players. They're starting their season, their clubs. They've got a whole campaign ahead of them. A lot of these guys are still in Champions League positions or Europa League positions or at clubs where that is a goal. So, 2 friendlies against Uzbekistan and Oman that's not something that they're going to get hyped for the way that I think we expect them to, because we, as U.S. soccer fans, especially USMNT fans, a lot of us grew up with the USMNT being our team, right? So we expect them to get hyped for every game like we are. And, I'll just say personally, yeah, I'm excited to watch the team play again. It was fun to watch them. I mean, winning 7-0 composite is nice, but these opponents aren't. You're not gonna learn a whole lot from these opponents. You're also not gonna get hyped for these two teams that you barely, most people can't even point out on the map.
Considering that the home of all caps, it looked like it was half full as well in that first.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that a little bit if you want, because I was disappointed that it was only about 15,000, and to me that is, people have been saying, "Oh, play these in LA, play these in New York." We've done that, and that's not like they sell out. LA got 2 games this year. They got one in Carson. They got one in the Bank. So don't pretend like we don't play in LA. U.S. Soccer has to figure out if they want people to attend their matches or if they want to make buckets of money. However, if you want to do all these things for the national teams and pay coaches and get good coaches, well, you're gonna have to pay money. So where do you get that money from? Ticket sales is the only way to get that. So,
Jarrett, for Bart, what's on your mind?
Yeah, so here's my question about all of this, about Greg. How different would the optics be if the Reynas didn't go full soccer parent and you got after the World Cup and you said, hey, we're not going to have to do a full internal investigation because we don't have anything to investigate because the Reynas didn't go full crazy, and you just kept Greg. How different do we look at it?
Yeah, I think if there would have been some teeth gnashing initially, and I would have been one of those people, again, it's just like, man, we couldn't have tried. I would have gotten a little mad at Ernie Stewart for not attempting to, look for something. I still think that a big flaw in this search was, and I go back a little bit to the athletic director thing where I joke that every athletic director worth their salt has a piece of paper in the top of their drawer, or maybe it's at the bottom of their drawer, but it's somewhere in that top drawer of all the coaches that they would go after if, either they needed to or whatever it is. I don't think we really approached it from that way anyway. And that to me, again, is a failure of you had an opportunity to truly do a global search. It doesn't feel like you did the search as thoroughly as you claimed to have, especially when your 2 final choices were Marsh and Berhalter. Now, is that because Marsh and Berhalter are willing to work for less than $2 million a year? Maybe. But I think the teeth gnashing would have been a lot at the beginning, but I think eventually they would have been like, all right, fine. I do think that maybe had you kept Berhalter, Stewart probably still would have resigned and, moved to take a job at a club level. It seems like that he just wanted to do that anyway. And then you bring in a new sporting director. I think that does amp up the pressure on Berhalter to perform, right? Same concept. You bring in a new athletic director. Well, they didn't hire you, so how do they feel about you is still to be determined. But to be fair to Matt Crocker, a lot of the things he said about the Berhalter search and what they look for, he kind of copy and pasted that over to what they're looking for the U.S. women's coaches he talked about last night. Now, obviously, I think their expectations for a women's coach and their competitive salary for the women's coaches, we've learned, is a lot higher. Vlatko is making near the top of what you would expect a women's national team coach to be making. And I think they'll spend a little bit more money to get the new women's coach. But it seems like Matt Crocker and U.S. Soccer have a pretty consistent set of parameters and qualifications they want among both, if not all, their coaches. So, I think Berhalter would have been, people would have been mad about Berhalter, but they would have gotten over it had it just been an extension. But we'll never know because Claudio and company decided to ruin everything.
Yeah, Matt Crocker on the postgame show last night said that interim women's national team manager Twyla Kilgore will stay in the job through the October friendlies. The men's coach hire, he said, was really important, a key part of the job to start with, and now my focus turns to the women's team and the women's head coach search. Then obviously helping Twyla and the staff prepare for their event, which is just around the corner. And I got a name for you. I got a name.
Is it Serena Wiegman?
No, it is not Serena.
Is it Pia Sundhage?
No, it is not Pia Sundhage version 2.0. Randy Waldrum from Pitt. I know that backyard brawl, that's fighting words for you. Is this weekend, I think.
I think rescuing any man from having to be at Pitt is probably smart. So
Dave Wannstedt, U.S. national team coach.
No, Jared, no. I think you're not wrong, and I think that should be the type of coach we're going after, as someone who has proven to both be a good player development, but also I really think we got to hire someone who has international management experience. I really do, because I think that was the biggest critique you had of Vlatko, and I think all the players liked Vlatko as a person, but the more we get kind of away from the actual tournament, you're hearing some criticism. You even heard some criticism last night from Crocker, not like directly Vlatko sucked at this, and this, but he pointed out specific things that kind of have been criticisms of Vlatko. And I definitely think one of the ways you can mitigate those problems is if you hire someone who has international management experience. And I don't know, Randy Waldrum has that, it seems.
And he would actually get paid on time.
I think people underestimate that value that U.S. soccer and the landscape here has. Those checks clear on time.
We say the same thing about when people would come to Atlanta United or come to MLS in general from some countries. It's like, hey, man, the check is clearing every week.
Yeah. And I get it. People talk about like competitive balance and pro rel, and we can, we're not getting into that rabbit hole. But listen, outside of the top 3 clubs in a country, and some countries don't even have a top 3 clubs, that paycheck is not guaranteed every 2 weeks or whatever. It isn't. And MLS has that advantage, that's for sure. U.S. soccer seems to have that advantage too, because they charge $1,000 for a ticket to a friendly.
Yeah. Last night against Oman, Benja Kremovsky and Kevin Paredes got their debuts, contributing to
Paredes got a goal.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot tell me differently.
And Valerian Balogun scored in the first half. Ricardo Pepi in the second half. I think once again, and Christopher Lund got the start last night, so he got back-to-back caps in this window. What are your, like I said, I know that we're not necessarily getting into impressions on the whole, but the larger Cruton picture for Greg Berhalter in putting Kremovsky in and giving him some minutes for the U.S. men's national team where he would be fighting for the same in other countries.
I mean, obviously, let's not pretend like this isn't a recruiting pitch, right? I don't think Kremovsky has earned, I say this not to diminish him, but it's not like he's earned a U.S. national team senior call-up just on merit alone. But there's nothing wrong with calling a guy up who's had a pretty good season in MLS, who, is best friends with Leo Messi now, and can, we got to kind of maybe recruit him. I mean, my philosophy is, why not recruit him? Worst case scenario, he's just a U.S. national team player now. Best case scenario, he turns out really darn good, and he's going to be a starter down the line. Obviously, he's very young, so even the 2026 cycle is probably unlikely for him, especially when you consider the just depth we have at midfield.
Because he'd be, 21, 22, I think, in 26?
It's a lot of math, but that sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what, 3 years plus 18? Yeah, he'll be 21,
22, yeah.
Then he can at least win Budweiser Man of the Match then. But he can be a guy who can help maybe. I mean, but you're thinking of guys like this age especially, and this is why we have a U17 World Cup coming up in November, December. We have the U19s going down to the Pan Am Games. Those types of tournaments are important for that 2030 cycle. Get those players integrated into the system, into the program, get them bought in, and then, 2030, when you need those mid-20s guys to step up and take control of the program, that's where they can come into play.
As they play in Saudi Arabia. Jarrett, what's on your mind?
And as far as, some of these guys who we've known, I mean, not the Kremovskys, not the new guys in the world, from some of the stalwarts, was there any stock up, stock down? And I know you talked about these guys playing not at full speed, getting ready for Champions League. Anything that stuck out to you for stock up, stock down?
I think stock up is Pepi. I think he just needed to score goals to remind himself he can, because he hasn't really played a whole lot at PSV. I don't think that's a problem. He's behind a very good player who's scoring a lot for his club. But I think for Pepi, it was just good to get on the score sheet and be very involved, especially when you consider that we kind of think Balogun's number one. And I don't think there was anything to dispel that necessarily. But Pepi's got to A, pressure Balogun, and B, I mean, you're fighting for that spot at Copa America next summer, right? Because the likelihood is you're not taking 3 strikers because you're probably only getting a 23-player roster unless FIFA decides to truly show that they hate women and give the people a 26-player roster for the 2026 World Cup. But you're only looking at 2 strikers. Pepe's got to make that case to be on that roster, and I think he's the only one that I came away with and go, oh yeah, that was a good camp. Everyone else was pretty much just like, meh. Tim Ream looked slow. I don't count Tim Ream as someone I'm looking at going forward as a key player. I thought that honestly, I thought Miles and Richards last night was what we need to see more of. It was kind of fun watching Chris Richards play while I was here in Hoover, Alabama, by the way. So shout out to him and his family. Great mom and dad. They looked really good last night, and I know it's Amman, I get it, but you still held both of them scoreless. So ask Mexico what that would feel like, But seriously, you held 2 teams scoreless. You can talk about the level of play, and Jared, I think this is where, for me anyway, I look at it and go, you still didn't give up any goals. And if that is going to be, I know people are going to complain about Berhalter ball and the lack of creativity, and that's very valid. We're not giving up a whole lot of goals under Greg Berhalter, and that's still a positive. We didn't give up a whole lot of goals under either BJ or Hudson either. So the system does do a good job of protecting your back line or protecting yourselves from not giving up opportunities. I wish it created more, but for me, us, going scoreless in 2 games, 180 minutes, that's just hard to do even when you consider friendlies,
We got a couple of minutes left. Was there anything in the reffing down here sphere that has been in your crosshairs the last 7 days?
Well, shout out to John Roper for sending me the video of the German player giving a reverse to the referee after getting
Yes.
That was pretty funny. I do want to talk about the Miami incident.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to ask.
So I haven't been able to see definitively, but I do think that so here's the situation, right? The player, there's a foul committed by, I forget the player, a foul committed by the defensive team. Attacking team takes the free kick quickly and goes and scores a goal. The problem is, the controversy is the referee was talking with the player who had committed the foul.
Right, and Busquets comes in.
Right. The question is, who initiates that conversation? Because if the referee stops play to, warn the player, talk with the player, then yeah, we're stopping play, chill, what are we doing? If that's just the other team yelling at me and complaining, I'm damn well not giving you that benefit of the doubt on that free kick, and so that's where that situation is if we as a referee have stopped match to give a card or do other sort of game management type stuff, then yes, we would have had to be like, no, Sergio, stop, don't do that. And most referees, before they have that conversation, they usually, will put a hand out and say like, hey, hold on, I got to talk to this guy, or it's very clear they're doing a instructional, educational opportunity with this player who needs to shut up. But that didn't seem to be the case there. It seemed like it was more of a complaint than it was an instruction. And at that point, that's on you.
Hold on to the ball, bruh.
Yeah. So I think that the controversy is a little overblown because, I think it's something that is good to talk about as we're having this conversation now. We're explaining what happened there. But yeah, yes, it's another example of Messi. Well, not Messi, but Messi's team getting the benefit of the doubt, of a referee decision or a league decision. Lord knows that they have had plenty of support from the league to not just get Messi here and Busquets here and everyone else, but throughout this process. But apparently even Messi's going to score in the 8th minute on Saturday. And it's going to be 1-0 Miami at that point in time. I don't know if you saw that, but
script
is that
Apple.
the script? Is that in the scripts from the script writer?
No,
Yeah. John, did you see this?
No.
Okay, during Apple's Apple did their reveal for the new iPhone, and in one of when they're showing off what the iPhone can do, they did oh, you can get live sports updates, and it was Atlanta versus Miami with Miami scoring from Messi in the 8th minute. So just catching strays, you know how it goes.
Thanks, Tim Cook.
I will say I appreciate the fact that they picked MLS to showcase, and they showed the game that's happening like this weekend because they did it. They announced the new iPad or the iPhone this week,
15.
So that was kind of cool. It just was, why did it have to be us losing to Miami after an 8th minute Leo Messi, presumably free kick? We'll just go with that. But who knows with our back line? Who knows?
From like 22. He launches something and it turns into a free kick-a-palooza with Messi.
It could also be a 1v1 versus Parada or Abram, and that will probably leave us.
Well, but Luis played 90 minutes.
I know. Well, that's why I said Parada or Abram, because Miles also went 90. That was my only negative from last night. Was did we have to play Miles Robinson all 90?
But Gigi was already back. Almada did not play.
Yeah.
That's Saba, I think, is in transit. Chiade has already started practicing, so it will be interesting going on. Why are you in Hoover, sir?
I'm helping my dad out. He does grocery sales, and he needed some help with the show this week. He double booked himself between Dollar General and Piggly Wiggly, so I came here a day early to get everything set up and start everything, so that he could join us.
Ah, okay.
And I met Paula Dean.
Oh, okay.
And the pig.
Well, see, now that
the pig is more important in my opinion to me.
The pig is way more important. I got a picture with the Piggly Wiggly pig. Trying to figure out how much merch I can come home with that has a pig on it.
This is exactly what I did in Colorado. I didn't care that I got to see the Rapid. I got to hang out with Rapid Man. That was me living my best life.
Exactly. I might even stop at Buc-ee's on the way home, Chris. I have a new one in Leeds.
Yes, they do. They've got one right at Auburn Technology Parkway.
Yeah. So.
And they've got one at the one in Leeds on the hill, and that one is a very, very crowded Buc-ee's. What's going on with Soccer for USPOD?
We're trying to figure out recording schedule for this week to kind of recap what happened with the US men. And then next week we'll do some previews of the US women. Maybe, next week, maybe. We'll see. Next week is interesting. Tuesday is my birthday. I fly to DC on Wednesday and fly back on Thursday. So
okay,
we'll see how that recording's going.
Well,
next week,
and also your 10:30 a.m. segment next week.
Well, so I might do that. I might have to push that earlier.
Okay, let's just go 9 o'clock hour. That's fine with me. I mean, if you,
I gotta remember what my flight is.
Well, when you remember what your flight is, we'll figure.
We're taking that $50 round trip flight on Frontier to and from Baltimore. But hey. Thanks to Atlanta United for the free away tickets for season ticket holders. I forgot that I had requested these at the beginning of the year because I thought in my head I would be in Morgantown, and I would just go from Morgantown to DC for the game. And then a month ago they emailed me like, "Hey, congratulations, you got tickets to the DC game." And I was like, "Oh, I forgot I requested this." And if you don't use them, you get charged. And I was like, "Well, could I email them?" And then I looked at flights. I was like, "Well, $52 round trip." Yeah, we'll do this. So,
and Neil Brown is still employed.
All right.
Well, okay. So I was going to actually ask you something fun and not insulting. I don't want to remind you about Neil Brown. I was going to ask you. Do you have any thoughts on whatever the hell's going on in New England?
No,
you won't
because okay. Here's the thing. Because I've been trying to actually follow this. No one knows what's going on.
Mm-mm.
It's amazing.
And I think that's the biggest.
I love it so much.
It's the combination of Bruce getting put on administrative leave for. Yeah. It felt like 4 months. I mean, it was just like, hey, he's not coaching, and it was like, but why? And they're like, well, there's an investigation. Why? He said bad things. What were the nature of the bad things? We didn't even hear that.
It's under investigation.
And then every comment after, and then Caitlin Kyle gets in trouble for, saying things. And I think the problem was for me, if you would have said what they were, then the Caitlin Kyle incident would have either A, not happened, or B, been cleared up very easily. Like, no, it wasn't this, it was actually this. And now it's just the players are, so I don't think the players would have not practiced yesterday, withheld their training, had he been fired for doing or saying something to players or staff that was racial, homophobic. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, or
if they had been actually told what he did.
Right. So it's just what is going, what is going on here? Because those are conversations I do believe need to be held in closed door, and they don't necessarily need to get out. Like the actual thing that he said, unless there is a public report published, I don't care necessarily what he said. I would rather just know, like, hey, it was this type of stuff. We don't need to know all the details. We just kind of need to know, like, well, what kind of stuff did he say? Was it racist? Was it sexist? Was it homophobic? Was it transphobic? Was it, demeaning and bullying of players, coaches, and other, like, what was it? Because, I mean, of all the things Bruce Arena is, I don't think he's particularly a, like, mean person to people around him. Does that make sense?
Yeah. He's 71.
Yeah, but he could also just be an old curmudgeon. And
right.
Who knows? You know?
And I think that's probably the leader in the clubhouse when it comes to
fired for being an old curmudgeon.
Yeah.
It's just so interesting because we don't
know.
League needs to. This is where, because clearly not even reporters are getting anything, and this is getting actual traction in local New England news, which is like big because the Patriots even played this weekend and they still are talking about the Revolution.
Yeah.
So, and Tom Brady did things this week like that. They're talking about the Revs. That's how big of an issue this is.
Yeah.
And the fact that no one can get information is scary because it's also clear that no one has information.
Right.
No one's leaking it because probably like 3 people know it, and one of them is Bruce Arena.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Nick says it'd be hilarious if they have to keep Richie Williams around because he is a whistleblower. So,
do we even know that he's a whistleblower? Like, that's the thing. He supposedly, but he's just like, I don't know.
And then when Clint PA was announced as head coach, the interim of the interim, the new substitute teacher, in the press release there was no mention of Richie Williams at all.
Yeah,
it's just like PA's your new guy. He's bringing his assistant. Bio information on PA, bio information on Marcelo. No mention of Richie Williams whatsoever.
This is a PR disaster for New England. But this is, again, where you have a single entity league. Why isn't MLS PR and comms stepping in to handle this? That's where I don't understand, because the New England Revs comms team have flubbed this, but they may have flubbed it because, the problem with comms is you can only do as much as you're told to do.
Mm-hmm. And then you don't have a press conference the night of the news dump, because the news dump happens immediately as the match is ending.
Yeah.
Then you don't have a press conference there. Then you have a press conference with Richie Williams, who references the investigation 3 times. What are your emotions about Bruce Arena resigning? Oh, you'll have to refer to the investigation. He said that 3 times literally in his press conference.
But it's like, well, what investigation? We don't know. Nothing's been published or made public.
Yeah, and so
that we know that it happened.
Yep, 1 o'clock. Brian Bolello and Cardinalfo are going to have their press conference, and it will probably be the highest attended virtual press conference that the Revs will have had. How much longer are you in Hoover?
I'm leaving today, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, then make sure that everything is on its proper stanchions and will not fall down, so your dad can properly represent. And,
we're trying.
And we will catch up with you probably, my guess is probably in Hartsfield-Jackson next week.
Maybe that'll be what it is. We do a live hit together in Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport tomorrow, or next week. That'll be fun.
Yep. So just make sure that you're in a location where you can hear. He is at Artemis Prime 19 at SoccerForUSPod. Bart, enjoy Hoover, enjoy the pig. We'll catch up with you next week, my friend.
Bye, y'all.